Hello children, let me welcome you to the virtual class of the Brihan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika. My name is Shraddha teacher. Children, we are in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic and because of that we are not able to go to school, but that doesn't mean we are going to stop learning. So we are going to do many lessons which are very interesting from your textbook through the virtual class here. So let us do a lesson in English today. So children, we were doing the lesson 1.3, have you ever seen? And we have completed part 1 of the lesson very recently. So now today let us go to part 2 of this particular lesson. Now before we go on to do part 2, let us take a quick look at what we did in part 1. So first and foremost, we read the poem and we understood the meaning of the poem, and we also understood that this poem is very special in the sense that there are a lot of examples of homographs in the poem. We also, while reading the poem, noticed that each line in this particular poem is an example of a rhetorical question. We discussed what the meaning of rhetorical question is also. So what are rhetorical questions? Rhetorical questions are questions which are asked not for the sake of getting an answer. Okay, these are questions asked which are just for effect. So let us once again read the poem and see whether we are able to remember all that we studied last time. So here goes the poem. Have you ever seen? Have you ever seen a sheet on a riverbed or a single hair from a hammer's head? Has the foot of a mountain any toes? And is there a pair of garden hose? Does the needle ever wink its eye? Why doesn't the wing of a building fly? Can you tickle the ribs of a parasol or open the trunk of a tree at all? Are the teeth of a rake ever going to bite? Have the hands of a clock any left or right? Can the garden plot be deep and dark? And what is the sound of a birch's bark? So this is a poem written by a poet who's anonymous. That is, we do not know whose work this is. So this is an important thing that we did last time, children. We talked about the meaning of the poem and I explained the poem to you. We also did a very interesting exercise on homographs. We understood what the meaning of homographs are because the poem is full of homographs. Each line in the poem has got a homograph. We did an example also to that effect in the previous part of the lesson. So homographs, they are also called as multiple meaning words. So words which are spelled the same but they have different meanings. So let us take a look at some examples of homographs. So we had, we turn on the light at night. So here we have light, which is, you say, dark, opposite of dark, roshni, light. And a feather is very light. So here the light means very less heavy, something which is not heavy at all. Then we have, he used a saw to cut the board. So the saw is a instrument or it is a device which is used by the carpenters. I saw my friend after school. So I saw means the act of seeing, looking. I saw my friend. So saw and saw are homographs. Then we had the example, the sun began to sink in the west. Sink means go down in the west. Rise. Okay, the sun rises in the morning and sets in the evening. So the sun began to sink in the west. And I washed my hands in the sink. Now here the sink means a wash basin. And the last example that we did was, we went to the park. My mom has to park the car. So the park here is a place in the first example. It's a garden where you go to play games. And the second park is the action of putting the car into place. So children, this was the exercises that we did last time. We did the poem and also we did this vocabulary exercise. We will do a little bit of grammar exercise from the same poem. So here I am back with the grammar exercises from the poem Have You Ever Seen? So this will be part 2 of the lesson Have You Ever Seen? So now if you look at this particular poem, children, there are a lot of figures of speech in the poem. Okay, now what are figures of speech? Now figures of speech are those parts of speech or those poetic liberties that the poets take that go beyond the original meaning of words. Alright, now these kind of words you will see, or this kind of language, or these kind of sentences, usually you will find in poems, in poetry. Alright, and this is only for giving the poem or giving the piece of writing a new kind of approach. Alright, so figure of speech, you can say it is one kind of device, or it is one kind of method or technique which is used by these writers or these poets in order to make their poems more attractive, more interesting and more amusing for the person who's reading it. Alright, so what is figure of speech? A figure of speech is a speech that goes beyond the original meaning of words in order to supply new effects or a fresh approach into an idea or a subject. For example, see here, if a person says that he is starving. Now, when do you say that you're starving? Who is a person who's starving? A person who is close to death because of hunger. These kind of people, we say that they are starving. Okay, but here when you say I'm starving, it doesn't mean that you're dying of hunger, but it means that you are very, very hungry. Okay, your hunger has gone to extreme levels and you're very hungry right now. Alright, so these kind of things, these kind of usage of words which is done in poems, in poetry, is called as figures of speech. Now there are some common figures of speech that we have been learning since we were in the 6th and 7th standard. So we have learned about metaphor, we've learned about simile, which are very, very common figures of speech. Now you've grown up, you've come to standard 9, okay? So let us look at some more figures of speech now according to the content of your textbook or the poem in this particular time. So what did we see? We saw that figures of speech are actually poetic devices. Devices or techniques which are used by poets in order to make their work or their poems more interesting. Alright, so like I told you, we have 4 figures of speech which is part of this particular lesson. It is interrogation, we have pun, then we have personification, and finally we have alliteration. So these are the 4 figure of speech that we have to learn as part of this particular poem Have You Ever Seen? Alright, now let us take each of them one by one. So we will do interrogation first. We will see what the meaning of interrogation is. We will do a few examples, okay, and I will see to it that the examples which I show you are very interesting so that you will be able to remember them immediately. Okay, so let us go to the first figure of speech that we have, that is interrogation. So what is the common meaning of interrogation? When you think about interrogation or when someone tells you the word interrogation, immediately certain pictures are formed in your mind. That is asking questions. See how a person is being interrogated, means he's being asked some questions in order to pick out or in order to derive information from him. Alright, so in a way I have understood that interrogation deals with the technique of questioning. Okay, but when it comes as a figure of speech, it is slightly different. Why do you interrogate someone? You interrogate someone in order to take out knowledge or take out information from that person. You want to know what's going on in the mind of that person. But here when we talk about interrogation as a figure of speech, it has got
another name too, and that name is rhetorical questions. Now, we have been learning about rhetorical questions also in the lower classes. Nevertheless, we will learn it again this time. But remember, interrogation as a figure of speech, the meaning varies slightly from the normal meaning. Okay, so here as a figure of speech, interrogation means, in other words, rhetorical questions. So let us see what rhetorical questions are. So interrogation is the asking of a question not for the sake of getting an answer, but to put a point more effectively. Okay, so why are you asking a question? You have no intentions of getting an answer. You do not want to know what the answer is because you already know the answer. Then what is the point in asking a question? Just to make yourself more assertive. Okay, just to make your point stronger, more effective, you're asking this question. Now it is also known as rhetorical question. Why? Because it is symbolic. It is only for effect that you're asking this question. That is why interrogation, when taken as a figure of speech, is called as rhetorical question also. Alright, now let us see what is the basic difference between a normal question and a rhetorical question. So let us look at this example. So these are all normal questions. Can you see this boy is asking some normal questions. So let's for example take the first question. How are you? Okay. So now how are you means what will you do? Will you just keep mum or will you answer? You will answer definitely. Isn't it? You will say I'm good, I'm doing well, okay, I'm fine. If someone asks you where have you been, what will you say? You will say I've been to school, okay, I've been to the market. When did you come back? I just came back right now, or I came back yesterday, or I came back last week. So, this is an example to tell you that these are normal questions. So, what is the difference between these questions and rhetorical questions? There are many more questions also, you can read them. What do you want to do now? Where are you staying? Are you happy to be back? Do you plan to go back? Where are your parents? Can you help me go there? So these are all questions that you're asking. So what is the difference between these questions and a rhetorical question? So the difference is mainly that in these questions you expect an answer. So answers are expected when you ask a normal question. But when you're asking a question as part of interrogation or when you're asking a question which is a rhetorical question, you do not expect answers. Okay? Let us, for example, take some examples of rhetorical questions here. So you see, the first one, are you crazy? So this question, when I'm saying, are you crazy? I want to say that you are crazy. You're doing something so, you can say not normal, that you are crazy. Okay? So look at the next question. Can you imagine that? Means they're doing something or something is so bad that you can't even imagine it. Okay, so when I'm saying, can you imagine that? I'm saying that you just can't imagine that. Alright, look at the next one. If you poison us, do we not die? So this all of us know that if someone poisons you, you will die. So you're saying that we will die if you poison us. So please don't poison us. If you poison us, we will die. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? So you should be ashamed of yourself. This is what I want to say when I'm saying, when I'm asking you, aren't you ashamed of yourself? So I'm telling you in a way that you're doing something bad and you should be ashamed of yourself. So children, these are all examples of rhetorical questions where the answer is known to you and you're asking this question only to prove a point. Okay? One more thing which I would like to point your attention to is most of these statements that have turned into rhetorical questions are strong statements. Okay, statements which are which carry a very strong emotion. You can see the exclamation mark used over there. Okay, this is not a rule. Remember, English is not like pure sciences where you combine two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of water and you get water. hydrogen and oxygen, you get water. It is not like that. So there are no rules in English which you can say are hard and fast. But this is just something which I would like to draw your attention to, that usually when you want to make a strong statement, that is the time you ask a rhetorical question. Okay? So this was the first figure of speech that we have done now. Let us go to the next one. A pun. So what is a pun? A pun is a play on words that have the same sound but different meanings. Okay, so when you use homonyms and when you try to create some kind of, you can say, humor or wit, then it is called as pun. Now, puns are usually witty or humorous. So when you want to add some element of humor or element of fun or some light element to your poem, you write or use the figure of speech pun. Okay. For example, time flies like an arrow. Okay. Now, flies here means the action of flying. So time flies. Can time literally fly? No, but time passes soon. Okay, and look at the other meaning of flies here. Fruit flies, they like bananas. See? So fruit flies, they eat fruit and they like bananas. So here there are two words used. The first one is time flies and the other one is fruit flies. So in one, the flies is the action, and the other one, the fly means the insect fly. So what is pun? In other words, you could say that jokes created because of playing with words. When you play with words and then the situation becomes humorous or the sentence becomes funny, then that is called as pun. Okay, so we will see some interesting images to understand the meaning of pun here. So see, why was the baby ant confused? Why was the baby ant confused? Because all his uncles were ants. So you got the point? How words are used in order to make the situation funny or in order to create a joke. Now ants are all ants only. Alright? Now why is this baby confused? Because all its uncles are all ants. So this is the use of pun. I've tried to pick up examples which will be easy for you to understand. Let's look at one more example. Why are teddy bears never hungry? So teddy bears are never hungry because they are stuffed. Now you know a teddy bear is a kind of a doll or a toy which is called as a stuffed toy. So there is some soft filling inside it. The other meaning of stuffed means when you eat too much and now there is no space in your stomach. That time you say, no, I can't eat anymore because I'm stuffed. Alright, so they are saying, why are teddy bears never hungry? Because teddy bears are always stuffed. Alright, so these are some humorous, you can say, or some very nice examples of pun, interesting examples of pun. Let us look at some more. So look at this. There's no point anymore. Now when you say there is no point anymore, you are either very upset or you have given up on something. Okay, you have given up and you're saying that there is no point in talking to you. I am accepting my defeat. So that is what you want to say when you say there's no point. But here look at the other meaning. When the pencil is saying there's no point, it doesn't mean that the pencil is depressed or the pencil is upset. It could also mean that the point of the pencil is broken off. Okay, so this is also a joke which has been created with words. And one last meaning, let's see, one last example. What kind of keys do kids like to carry? So kids, small children, what kind of keys do they like? So they like cookies. Okay, so this is what is meant by pun. Okay, when you play with words and you create humor, you create wit, that is called as pun. The next one, children, is personification. So personification we have been learning since we were in the lower classes too. So we know what is personification. So quickly let us see what personification is. So it is a figure of speech which gives the qualities of a person to an animal, an object or an idea. Okay, so there are certain things which people can do and which animals or objects or ideas cannot do. So these qualities, when you're giving it to an animal or an object or an idea, then it is called as personifying. Treating that animal, treating that object, or treating that idea as a person. Look at the example. The wind yells while blowing. Okay, so only a human being can yell. So you can see this person yelling. Yelling means screaming loudly. Only a human being, people like you and me, can yell. Winds cannot yell. So the wind cannot yell at all. So it is an idea of personification. Let us look at some more ideas quickly. So the leaves danced across the lawn. That means the leaves, they were blown away by the wind and they moved across the lawn. But saying that the leaves danced. So can you see a leaf dancing? So is it possible? So that is personification. You're personifying the leaf. Alright. See, look at this. The stars winked at me. So there's this boy who's saying the stars are winking at me. So winking means when you shut and open your eyes, it's called winking. The stars cannot wink, they're just twinkling. Because of the gases in the air, the light is distorted and you feel that the stars are twinkling. Okay, or winking. And now, in the next 2 minutes, let's look at the examples of personification. So the camera loves me. Camera is not a human being to love you. The flowers begged for water. See the condition of the flowers? They are in a very bad position. They are almost, they have withered away and they need water. But that doesn't mean that they are begging for water. Lightning danced across the sky. And art is a jealous mistress. Art, if you take up any art, like for example drawing, painting, dancing, it takes up a lot of your time. So it is said that art is a jealous mistress. Okay? These are all examples of personification, children. We will look at the last figure of speech again, a very simple one. Alliteration. We have learnt it again, like I told you previously, we have learnt it. I have taught you this, so I know. The use of the same beginning consonant sound in a line or a verse. So when the consonant sound is repeated in the beginning of a line or a verse, it is called as alliteration. Let us look at this example. Peter Piper picked a pick of pickled peppers. So the sound of the letter P is repeated. Okay. Some examples for alliteration before we quickly sign off for today. See, Susie saw a silly seal. So the sound of the consonant sound of the letter S is repeated during the beginning of each word. So Susie saw a silly seal. Now I remember when we were learning a lesson previous to this, we learned that when we talk about rhyme, it is just the exact opposite of this particular thing. Okay, so Susie saw a silly seal is an example of alliteration because the beginning, the consonant sounds at the beginning are repeated. One more example, crawl like a creepy crawly caterpillar. So the sound of the k in the C is repeated. Okay children, last two examples, jump like jolly jumping beans. The letter J is repeated and the sound is repeated. The snake slithered slowly. Okay, so children, this was a lesson based on grammar. We did figures of speech. We did 4 figures of speech if you remember in this lesson. We did personification, rhetorical question, alliteration and pun. Okay, so now with these 2 sessions we have finished doing the lesson Have You Ever Seen?
So children, now that we have finished seeing the exercises based on figures of speech, that is we saw what is interrogation, what is pun, what is personification and alliteration. Let us try and solve a few examples which are there or a few exercises which are there in our English textbooks. So let's go to the first one. So if you have your textbooks with you, I would ask you to open page number 14 in your textbook. Here you will find certain exercises based on the figures of speech that we just learned. So here we have to find out examples, that is 3 examples of each of the figures of speech which they have asked us to do. So you will see they have asked us to find out examples of interrogation, personification, pun and alliteration. So what we'll do here is we'll find out 3 examples each of interrogation, personification and alliteration. Whereas we have one entire exercise, that is exercise 5, where we will be doing examples based on pun. Okay, so let us start with the first figure of speech for today, that is interrogation. So what is the meaning of interrogation? We just saw, children. So what is interrogation? Interrogation means it is again a question. Okay, now in the poem there are many examples you can say of interrogation. Now even a rhetorical question we can count it as interrogation. So when a question is asked not to get an answer but to emphasize a point or a fact, then it is an example of interrogation we saw. For example, we also saw the examples which are given in the textbook. When can their glory fade? So this is asked in the form of a question, but this question itself means that their glory cannot fade. Okay, even the question example which is there in the textbook for you, isn't it time for the autumn's glow? That means it is already time for the autumn's glow. So let us find out some examples of interrogation from the textbook. So the first example would be, does the needle ever wink its eye? That means the needle never winks its eye. Now children, when we do this kind of an exercise, I would want you to pause the video and try to figure out the answers yourself. You can also immediately play the video and then check whether your answers and mine are the same. There is one more thing which I want to tell you. Towards the end of the video, that is after you watch the video, you could go to the description box and you will find certain tasks in it. Now what those tasks are, I will explain to you at the end of the video. Okay? So hope you have paused the video and hope you have figured the answers. So the next example of interrogation would be, why doesn't the wing of a building fly? That means the wing of a building doesn't fly at all. Okay, it is not like the wing of a bird which can fly. And the third example here for interrogation is, what is the sound of a birch's bark? So a dog can bark, but a birch is a tree which of course obviously cannot bark. So these are some examples, 3 examples to be precise, from the poem for interrogation. Now children, you might find out your own answers also. For example, if I say, are the teeth of a rake ever going to bite? It means the teeth of a rake will never bite. So even that is an example of interrogation, okay? But you have to pick up 3. So I've given you these 3 sentences or these 3 examples. You can arrive at your own answers provided they are right. Let us move on and let us see the next one, that is personification. Now before we find out examples of personification, let us just discuss quickly what is the meaning of personification. We just saw it. So what is personification? Giving human qualities to inanimate objects is called as personification. Alright. So let us see example number 1. Does the needle ever wink its eye? So a needle doesn't have an eye at all in the first place. Alright. So there is no question of the needle winking its eye. So it is like giving a human quality where we can wink an eye to a needle. So this is an example of personification. The next example would be, can you tickle the ribs of a parasol? Tickling now is a kind of a feeling which happens only to human beings. Okay, when you tickle someone means you touch someone to make them laugh. So a parasol is an umbrella, it cannot laugh. So this is one more example of personification. And then you have, are the teeth of a rake ever going to bite? So you're personifying the teeth of a rake. Now again, as I said, you can have some more examples on your own, you can find out from the poem. Okay, let us go on and let us do the next one now, that is alliteration. Now what is alliteration? When the sounds, that is the consonant sounds at the beginning of the words are repeated in a line, it is called as alliteration. Alright, so let us pick up some examples of alliteration now here. or a single hair from a hammer's head. So the sound of the H is repeated here. Okay, so this is an example of alliteration. Or open the trunk of a tree at all. So the sound in the trunk and the sound in the tree is repeated. And finally you have, and what is the sound of the birch's bark? So you have the sound of the letter B, the consonant sound of the letter B, which is repeated. Okay, so these are some examples of interrogation, personification and alliteration that we did from the poem. Now we have this long exercise, fill in the blank exercise for fun. So come on, let's read it. Read the following sentences carefully, then fill in the blanks using appropriate words from the bracket to make pun. Now, what is the meaning of pun? We saw pun means it is a play upon words. When you play with words, most of the times puns are humorous also. When people want to taunt someone, that time also they can use pun. Okay, so here we have around 8 sentences. So let us try and find out and see how they are examples of pun. Here again, instruction repeat, pause the video and try to find out the answer for yourself. So she had a photographic memory but never developed it. So see, it's an example of pun. Why? Because we develop photographs. So in that way, she should have developed her memories, but she did not develop her memory, which was photograph. So that is an example of pun. See how we are playing with words here. Look at the next one. He was struggling to figure out how lightning works when it struck him. So here we do not know what struck him. Did lightning strike him, or did the ideas of how lightning works strike him? Okay, so again we are playing with words and trying to create something humorous. So it is an example of fun. Every calendar's days are numbered. So see, very simple. We know that on a calendar the days are marked with numbers. Another meaning of someone's days being numbered means he has got very less to live. So see how it is connected. Is a calendar a living thing which can die? No. But the words have been used in such a way that the fact is true. The calendar's days are numbered. The days on the calendars have numbers on them. Alright? See, so isn't it fun? Next one is, a bicycle cannot stand on its own because it is too tired. Now here we have used homographs. Two is TOO2, but actually we want to say that it has got 2 tires. TWO2 TYRES, tires, or tired, TYRED, tired. It has got 2 tires on it, 2 wheel covers called tires. That is why it cannot stand on its own. If it was 3, it could have stood. If it was 4, it could have stood on its own, but it has got only 2. Okay, so see how homograph is also used here along with pun. The next one, I am reading a book on anti-gravity. It's impossible to put down the book. See now, when there is a gravity, everything gets pulled down. But this is anti-gravity, so things are not getting pulled down. So this person is not able to put down the book also, because it is based on anti-gravity. The next one, I tell you a chemistry joke, but I know I wouldn't get a reaction. Now reaction is a word related to chemistry. Here reaction to a joke means no one will laugh. What do you call Watson when Sherlock isn't around? So Sherlock is Holmes. So Watson without a home will be what? He will be homeless. Okay? And the last one, I would tell a history joke, but it's too old-fashioned because history is about old things. So children, this was part 2 of the lesson, Have You Ever Seen? Now in this lesson, we did grammar. We did a lot of grammar. We talked about various figures of speech, and we also did the examples or the exercises which are there in our textbook related to all these grammar and vocabulary exercises. So that was all in this video. So children, now you have watched the video. So after you watch the video now, you will have to complete a few simple tasks. Now you might have watched the video on your computers or your laptops or your mobile phones. Now after you watch the video, what will you do? You will please go to the description box which is given below the video. So what is the description box? See, the description box looks like this. Alright, and after you go to the description box, you will see that there are a few questions there. Now what are these questions about? These questions are about the lesson that we just learned or the video that you just watched. So what will you do? You will think back properly about the lesson and you will try and answer these questions and note down the answers in your notebook if you want. Okay? After that, we have another task waiting. You will also click on the link which you will find in the description box to fill up the Google form. So now what is the Google form, children? It is nothing but a simple form. There are a few simple questions there about the video which you just saw and also about yourself. So these are the tasks now that you will have to complete after you watch each video. So children, wasn't that a very interesting lesson? I'm sure you learnt a lot of new things in this lesson. If you have liked this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my video so that you will get to see all the videos which I keep posting regularly.